Welcome to One Bills Lite, your numbers-oriented discussion on all things Bills in the NFL. Coming up, the merits of getting off to a fast start in the regular season. Steve is quizzed on fast start history in the NFL and the popularity of the two-point conversion. Let's hit the field.
And it's Steve Tasker who has been all over the field.
Kind of unique. He was kind of a dual-role player for you. Steve. A balloon. Steve. A blimp? We're not even in the stratosphere of normalcy here. All right, thanks for listening to your latest numbers crunching session on the Bills and the NFL. Chris Brown and Bills Hall of Famer Steve Tasker here with you as always. And with the NFL season now underway, with the NFL kickoff game in the books, we address the subject of fast starts. Naturally, every team wants to get off to a fast start. The benefits are evident, but where do you come down, Steve, on needing to start your season fast, stacking up wins in relation to finishing your season strong? Ideally, you want to do both, but does one have higher ranking in importance than the other?
You always equate fast starts with wins, right?
Yes.
I think it goes deeper than that. I think you start your season fast by playing well. You can win, you can lose a close game, but still play well. And I've seen other teams, like, for instance, Joe Gibbs is famous for saying one of the things in his early years with the Redskins, when the Washington football team was the Redskins, Joe Gibbs, they started their season 0-5, and they were number one in offense and number one in defense.
No way,
They
really?
were playing well, but they were getting beat by bouncing the ball. Now, they obviously went on to do great things, but that's the kind of you got to step back and say it's not all about wins and losses, although that's the best measuring stick.
And usually the key to job security?
Right. You want to just play well, and when you do that, you're good. So it's not all about wins and losses, but certainly that really helps you.
It does. And that thing that you referenced about Joe Gibbs will give you an indication as to where the NFC East used to be.
That's right. Yeah.
Not there right now.
Tough place to win.
I always, you hear it from coach. This is like part of the coach speak lexicon, right? We want to get off to a fast start, got to get off to a fast start, blah, 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 blah. It helps set the tone for the season. I don't think there's any question about that. But at the same time, you also hear coaches say, well, the teams that are going to be there at the end find their identity and hit their stride in November and December. You always hear that all the time. So it's just like, well, which one is more important? They're both important. You'd like to have both parts of the equation, because then that means you're winning a ton of football games. I would like to look into the long-term history of how often teams that don't get off to fast starts, and then you have to say, well, what is a fast start? What isn't a fast? Is 1 and 2 a slow start? Probably. Is 2 and 3 a slow start? I don't know. Like, where is the cutoff there?
Right.
Do you have to have a winning record? Like, is 3 and 2 an okay start but not a fast start? I mean, 4 and 0, 3 and 1, these are considered fast starts. What does it translate into is, the big question here. The Bills got off to a 4 and 0 start last season. It was instrumental in helping them tie the franchise mark for single season wins. Only once in Sean McDermott's first 4 years as head coach has the team been worse than 3 and 1 in their first 4 games, which was the 2018 season, as we all know, which finished with them not appearing in the playoffs, their only non-playoff berth season under McDermott. But we've also seen an instance where this Bills team started 0-3 and bounced back to finish 10-6 and make the playoffs. That was in 1998 when Doug Flutie took over on offense. They almost did it again in 2004 when they started 0-4 and failed to cash in on a win-and-in scenario in Week 17 against the Steelers. And those seem to be exceptions, though. When you think about history, and I don't know if this is the case for other NFL clubs, but at least in Bills history, slow starts and having successful seasons seems to be the exception rather than the rule. What do you think of that Bills history? Does that kind of reinforce, like, hey, you better win early if you want to have a chance late?
Well, it's better to be playing better late, because that gives you a shot at brass ring, at the Super Bowl thing, because you've got to be playing well to get in, to get deep into the playoffs. Stumbling like the Pittsburgh Steelers did a year ago, starting out 11-0.
Yeah.
before they
That's
stumbled.
a fast start.
That's a very fast start. And then they stumbled to the finish, and then a game one and done in the playoffs. And they had home field looked almost like they got home field wrapped up.
Yeah.
And then they didn't get that and didn't win a game. So it's better to give for Super Bowl aspirations to be playing well late. But a team like last year's Bills edition, they started out fast, as you said, 4-0, and they finished a dead sprint. They were hanging 40 burgers on teams.
And won 9 of their last 10.
And won 9 of the last 10 and would have won like their last 12 had they not
Hail Murray.
given up a Hail Murray. So they were on fire last year, and they were shifting gears and putting the pedal to the metal even against inferior opponents, even late in the season when things were, they were winning games and they were big leads. They were still piling it on, learning how to finish games. I thought that was huge. But you can play yourself out of it early, but if you play yourself into it late, sometimes that's a much better scenario.
Right. And the 2004 Bills, we thought were going to be an example of that, just remembering that season. They start the season 0-4. And I believe at the turn, they were either 2-5 or 3-5 at the turn, and then won 6 straight down the stretch to the end of the season. They were 9-6 going into week 17, having won 6 in a row. And it looked like they were going to make it, and it just didn't happen. But we've seen teams catch fire late in the season, qualify for a wild card, and go all the way to the Super Bowl. I think the 2000 Giants did that under Jim Fossil. They got to like 9-7 or 10-6, got in, went all the way to the Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but they got all the way there. I think the Raiders were the first wild card team to ever win a Super Bowl.
That back in the 70s.
81 or something.
81, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So
and then the Giants did it twice with Eli Manning. They got hot at the end of the season. They kind of hung in there early on, found their groove, and rode a defensive front 4 pass rush all the way to the Super Bowl. Beat the 08, 16 or 17, 18-0, no 19-0 Patriots to send them 19-1 to lose the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was a fast start and finish until the ultimate game for the Patriots.
That's right. That's.
I don't mind sticking it to them. We're going to provide some context here to fast starts in this week's edition of the Numbers Game as we put Steve to the test. Over the last 10 years, 7 NFL teams have a winning percentage of at least 600 or better through the season's first month. And those 7 teams have a combined 44 playoff berths and 10 Super Bowl appearances. So, Steve, I ask you, can you name the 7 teams that over the last 10 years have a winning percentage of at least 600 or better through the season's first month?
New England.
That's the easy one. Yep, New England Patriots is correct.
New Orleans.
New Orleans is not on this list. Not a fast start team, apparently.
Seattle.
Seattle is on the list. Yes, 21-13 since 2011. New England's 26-9.
I will say Kansas City.
Kansas City is on there, 23-11. 7 playoff berths, 2 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl title. New England, incidentally, as we mentioned, 26-9, 9 playoff berths, 5 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl victories.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is not on this list. Seattle, 21-13 that you guessed, 8 playoff berths, 2 Super Bowls, 1 Super Bowl victory. You're thinking about blue bloods over the last 10 years here, and there are a couple of outliers.
I will say Atlanta.
Atlanta is not on this list, no.
See, I thought that was my outlier.
Yeah, that was not a bad guess.
I'll say Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay is not on this list, no.
My list out. Oh my.
So you're looking between 2011 and 2020.
Denver.
Fast start teams. No, not on the list.
God, really?
Yeah, really. I don't think Peyton was there long enough.
Yeah, I guess. Minnesota.
Minnesota is not on this list.
Golly. How many have I got left? 4?
You have 4 teams left, correct. There are 2 in the NFC.
Dallas.
Dallas is one, yes.
Yeah,
21
Dallas.
and 13. Fast start. There are 2 left in the AFC, 1 in the NFC. Kind of a blue blood in the NFC that you haven't guessed yet.
Washington.
Not Washington.
Oh, Philly.
Not Philly. Really? Come
Well,
on, a team that wins every year. They've had a quarterback for a long time.
Oh,
And-
Green Bay.
Green Bay. There you go. 24, 10, and 1. 8 playoff berths. No Super Bowl appearances. No Super Bowl victory.
All right, then I got like 2 AFC teams.
2
together.
AFC teams. One is a perennial.
Baltimore.
Yes, there you go. 22 and 13. And
the
the
last
last one.
It's not Pittsburgh.
Nope. This one's a bit of a surprise.
Buffalo.
It is Buffalo. 21 and 14. Well done, Steve. Yeah, Sean McDermott era
That tickles
accounting
me.
for a large portion of those victories, having gone 4-0, 3-1 twice, and then I think 2018 they were 1-3
1-3.
out of the gate. So yeah, 21 and
Nice.
14 since 2011. The Bills in the first month of the season. Second part of our numbers game deals with going for 2 after a touchdown and its increase in popularity league-wide, Steve. Teams attempted a total of 131 two-point conversions last season, the most since 1994. They also converted 63 of them, second most in league history. So I want to see if you can guess the top 3 teams in successful two-point conversions. We're looking for number of conversions, not conversion percentage. Let me see if you can just
Number
get
of
the
2
top
point
3
go
teams.
fors. I will say Baltimore.
Baltimore is not on this list.
Buffalo.
No.
Kansas City.
Kansas City is down on the list. They are not in the top 3,
I'll say
but they were 3 of 3 last year. They were successful on all of them.
New Orleans. I mean, not New Orleans. New England.
Not New England, no.
Who would go for it?
Now, this doesn't always
Oh, wait,
mean
how about
that it's a great team.
Cleveland?
Cleveland is not on here. No.
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville is a little lower on the list. They're down there with Kansas City, not in the top 3. I'll give you the numbers. The top 3 teams in terms of conversions, the number 1 team had 8 conversions out of 12. The number 2 team had 7 conversions out of 16. And then there are 3 teams tied with 4 conversions. I'll give you any one of those 3 as the top 3.
Pittsburgh.
Not Pittsburgh. They go for it a lot. I was surprised
what
that
I
they
thought,
weren't
too.
on the list
Yeah.
because Tomlin almost goes for it every single time, going for 2. Yeah, that was a surprise absence from this list.
The Rams. L.A.
No.
San
So,
Francisco.
The top,
San Francisco.
no. 3 of the top 5 teams are NFC, and then there's 2 AFC teams that are tied for 3rd. So,
Seattle.
not Seattle, no.
Arizona.
No. This is kind of an esoteric stat. It's not
Yeah,
one
it's a
that
little bit. It's like there's no pattern. I can't.
There's
look
no
at
pattern. It's just
Carolina.
you're blind guessing. No. So I will give you divisions now.
All right.
The top conversion team, NFC North. Second is NFC East.
The
And-
Chicago Bears.
It is not the Bears. So
All right. So now it's got to be Green Bay
no again.
and Minnesota.
There you go. Minnesota led the league in 2-point conversions, 8 out of 12, for a conversion rate of
On the 2 points?
66.7%.
Why did they? Well, probably because they're trailing. All right. So that's one.
That's one.
What do I
There's
got
an
left?
NFC East club, 2 NFC East clubs. So you got a 50-50 shot
Philly.
here. Philly is, 7 of 16.
And I will say Washington Football Club.
It's Dallas, 4 of 6.
Man.
And then the other
Now
two.
he's just giving them to me.
Well, it's fine.
It's
I
pathetic.
was kind of a random number, but it was interesting to see who was most successful in converting. Miami and Tennessee tied with Dallas.
Really?
4 of
Miami.
6. Yeah, 4 of 6, 4 of 7. And then Indy was 3 of 5, Jacksonville 3 of 9, Kansas City 3 of 3. These are the only teams in the league that had 3 successful 2-point conversions or more last year. Wouldn't you expect the number of conversions to be higher than that?
Well,
they're telling us like, oh, they've gone for 2 more than.
It's less than half.
Yeah,
and there's like less than one. Less like 1 every 2 games they go for it.
Yeah,
on average, 1 every 2 games teams will go for it somewhere, and less than half of those are converted.
And I apologize for not having the Bills numbers handy, but I'll try to look those up and get them to people either out on Twitter or something in the future here. All right, good job on the numbers game this week. We close out this week's episode with a segment we like to call These 3 Things. This week, as the season is now underway, we offer 3 trends to watch in 2021. And while we don't want to fast forward through the season too much, knowing we expect the Bills to be a playoff team, Steve, these 3 trends all deal with recent playoff history. Tampa Bay, number 1. Tampa Bay will look to be the first team since Tom Brady's Patriots back in 2003, 2004 to win back-to-back Super Bowls. We are currently in the longest drought without a repeat champion in the Super Bowl era. What do we make of the lack of back-to-back NFL champion for the past 17 years?
I think it's a ton of reasons. When you got 31 other teams that are trying to beat you, for one thing, it's hard to win. It's hard to keep your roster together, and if you do keep your roster together, like Tampa Bay does this year, it's hard to stay healthy, and it's hard to have those guys show up hungry again. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons the team I was on was able to go to 4 straight was because we didn't win it.
Right.
So you always had that thing out there that you're really trying to get. Once you get there, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know? That's hard.
It's kind of like a been there, done that thing.
Yeah, now
and
it's
if
like,
you've been there and not done that, it's like, oh, I want to get back.
Yeah, do I really want to get shot up to win another one? When I already got one? That's hard. It's hard to put yourself through that. The physical torment and the physical suffering that you got to put yourself through because nobody else can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
I think that's the easy answer. It's freaking hard to do it in this league. Not only because of the reasons you mentioned, but nowadays in the free agency era where the turnover is unprecedented compared to what it was when your teams compared to what it was when your teams were playing.
You get poached.
You were able to kind of keep most of that core together. What's the number? 22 players played in all 4 There's no way in hell any team today would be able to say that with the transient nature of player talent in this league. So I think that's one of the main reasons why it's hard too. And I think it's one of the main reasons you saw Tampa Bay try to bring everybody back. You saw the Bills re-signing their offensive linemen to get them back in the fold. I mean, it's not universal, but teams try to strive for that continuity if they feel they have a championship caliber group together.
Look at the teams. I mean, it's hard to do it when you're neck deep in talent. Look at Cleveland. They're loaded. Look at Kansas City.
Yeah.
They've got maybe one of the all-time great runs of all time going here, and they can't,
They revamped their offensive line?
Yeah.
It's completely different.
It's hard to do. There's so many moving parts on a football team in the NFL from top to bottom, and all of those moving parts, and not only those moving parts, but the moving parts on the other team got to fall your way. When you're in a game.
Well, it did in the Super Bowl for the Bucs. They got to play the Chiefs without their 2 offensive tackles.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Speaking of the Chiefs, it's not all bad news for them as a Super Bowl loser, as just 3 of the previous 12 Super Bowl losers have missed the postseason the following year. But it's happened 3 of the last 5 seasons, including in back-to-back years. The 2016 Panthers, and then the 2019 Rams and the 2020 49ers all missed the playoffs the following year after a Super Bowl appearance. We've seen what can happen to teams the year after a Super Bowl appearance. Injuries bit the Niners last year, as we saw. The year before that, the Rams go 7-9 and don't make the playoffs either. Do we think there's a chance the Chiefs don't make the playoffs in 2021?
Well, there's always the chance. How likely is it? All it takes is an injury to the wrong guy.
Well, right. You lose Travis Kelce or you lose Tyreek Hill.
Or Mahomes.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes was limping around last year. If
Right.
it gets so bad that he can't play for a game, one and done.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. So yeah, you can see it happening because of the injury element that there is in football that you don't really foresee in other sports. But it can also be a team just lights fire. Like back in 2000, I think 16 or 17, when the Jaguars got hot, they come in, they beat in 2017. After the 2017 season, they come in, they beat the Bills in the wild card round. They go to Pittsburgh and hang 40-plus points on Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They just caught fire.
You don't see that.
You just don't see that. That can happen. You run into a team like that.
Yep. Ravens did it with Flacco a few years ago.
The Giants did it with Eli and that pass rush a couple of times. So you run into a team that all of a sudden is playing with such confidence and such emotion, you just can't beat them.
Yeah.
You can't play well enough to beat them that day. And that's, so it could happen, yes.
Yeah, I think
But
it's
I don't
possible.
know that it's going to here's the thing, to keep them out of the playoffs completely,
Yeah.
that's different than beating them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about. So getting them out of the playoffs completely, man, I don't know.
It's highly unlikely.
I don't know.
I think it's highly unlikely. The coaching staff is aces. They got, probably the best quarterback on the planet. But as you said, injuries can very quickly change the conversation, as we saw. The 49ers were a shell of themselves from 2019 in 2020 due to all the injuries that they racked up very quickly. I mean, week 2, they lose Bosa and Solomon Thomas in the same game to season-ending injuries. I mean, it was catastrophic.
Yeah.
That can happen.
You
you
can't-
don't know.
You can overcome that, but you're not going to do it like the next week. It takes you like think about it. That's what happened to the Bills when Milano was gone for like 8 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You stick somebody in there to take his place, and then he's not going to be there. So you got to change your defense for the guy that's going to play all the time, and that takes time. And the other guys around him have to get used to
AJ
that.
Klein, right?
So, you can overcome it, but man, oh man, it takes a while.
Yeah. Number 3, since the 1996 season, at least one team that played on Championship Sunday has missed the playoffs the following year. Last year, as we know, it was the 49ers. Chiefs, Bills, Bucks, Packers all played on Championship Sunday in 2020. Are you biting your nails yet? How much does this recent conference championship game history concern you with respect to those 4 clubs going into this season? Does one of them miss the conference title game?
I guess
Probably, right?
Probably, yeah. Probably. One of them misses the whole tournament.
This is the conference championship game.
Misses the
They
conference
don't.
champion. Yeah, they don't come back.
Oh no! I'm sorry. Miss the playoffs.
Miss the
sorry.
playoffs.
Miss the playoffs entirely.
If it's me and I'm calling one of them, I'm calling probably Green Bay.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning that way also. I don't know why.
Just because
But I would
it all
say-
hinges on the guy. Certainly it hinges on that for Kansas City and the Bucks and everybody, but if I don't know that the chemistry is there anymore for Aaron Rodgers. I don't know that it's given what happened to them this offseason.
There have been reports that things have been smoothed over there.
Hey, when you win games, everything gets smoothed over.
Right.
You decide you can live with just about any situation.
And not only that, I don't think the other teams in their division have closed the gap enough to say they're not going to be the division champion. So how do you kind of keep them out of? And the same thing with the NFC South. Like, the Saints have taken a step back. Carolina has incrementally improved. Atlanta, are they better than they were last year? I don't know. Maybe a little, but new coach. So you see the Bucks
Art
winning that
Smith.
division. They're making the playoffs. The Chiefs, all right, maybe the Chargers close the gap a little bit with Herbert, but enough to unseat them? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if one of these conference championship teams are going to be out of the playoffs this year. I think all 4, in all likelihood, make it, unless we see the injury-ravaged roster situation that we saw with the 49ers last year. I don't see how it changes.
Yeah, and that's a different read. You can say it, and then it just becomes an anomaly.
It's all about
statistical anomaly.
happenstance.
Yeah, it's not a trend.
Yeah. Those are these 3 things, and that'll do it for this week's edition of One Bills Lite, your numbers-intensive coverage of the Bills and the NFL. Be sure to subscribe so you know every time a new episode is available for your listening pleasure. And remember, when there isn't enough time for One Bills Live, there is always enough time for One Bills Lite. For Steve Tasker, I'm Chris Brown. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week, everybody.